Marcus Chen checked his delivery scanner for the third time that hour. The small device blinked with a cheerful green light, confirming his destination. Noctara Colony, Sector 7, Moonbase Delta 9. He had been a delivery driver for Galactic Express for 2 years now, and this should have been just another routine job. Pick up the package, fly to the destination, drop it off, get the signature, and move on to the next delivery. Simple. Easy. Done 1,000 times before. But something felt different about this delivery. The package in his cargo hold was huge, 3 large containers filled with delicate wedding decorations ordered by someone named Magistrate Valen of the Sangari people. Marcus knew very little about the Sangari except what other drivers whispered about during break times at the depot. They called them the vampire aliens because of their pale skin, their dislike of bright sunlight, and their diet of special liquid nutrients. Some drivers refused to deliver to Sangari colonies, spreading silly stories about danger and strangeness. Marcus never believed such stories. In his experience, most aliens were just people trying to live their lives, same as humans. Different biology, different customs, sure, but people nonetheless. His small cargo ship descended through Noctara's thin atmosphere. The moon was tidally locked to its parent planet, meaning one side always faced the giant gas world above, while the other side stayed in permanent darkness. The Sangari had built their colony right on the twilight border, where the light was dim and comfortable for their sensitive eyes. As Marcus guided his ship toward the landing pad, he noticed how beautiful the colony looked. Elegant spires reached upward, decorated with flowing designs that seemed to move in the perpetual half-light. Soft purple and blue lights glowed from windows and walkways. Everything looked graceful and artistic, like someone had built a palace instead of a simple moon base. The landing pad computer gave him permission to dock. Marcus set his ship down gently, double-checked that the cargo containers were secure on their hover cart, and opened the main hatch. The air that flowed in was cool and fresh, carrying a faint scent of flowers he didn't recognize. He pulled up the delivery details on his scanner. The address showed the Central Ceremonial Hall. Building 12, Level 3. Marcus programmed the hover cart to follow him and stepped out onto the landing pad. A Sangari official greeted him at the entrance, a tall, slender figure with silver-white skin and large, dark eyes that reflected the ambient light like mirrors. She wore flowing robes of deep purple that seemed to shimmer when she moved. "Welcome to Noctara Colony," she said in perfect standard language, her voice musical and soft. "You are the courier from Galactic Express?" "Yes, ma'am. Marcus Chen. I have a delivery for Magistrate Valen wedding decorations. 3 containers." Marcus gestured to the hover cart behind him. The official's expression changed to something Marcus couldn't quite read. Was that surprise? Concern? "You are early," she said carefully. "Or perhaps we are late. There has been a confusion with the timing." "I can wait if you need me to," Marcus offered. "I just need someone to sign for the delivery." "It is not so simple." The official gestured for him to follow. "Please, come with me. I will take you to the magistrate." Marcus followed her through beautiful corridors lined with artwork and glowing crystals. Other Sangari passed them, all moving with the same graceful, flowing motion. They glanced at Marcus with curiosity but not hostility. Several nodded politely. The official led him to the Central Ceremonial Hall, and Marcus's eyes widened. The huge room was already decorated for a celebration. Hundreds of hanging crystals caught and scattered the soft light. Tables were arranged in elegant patterns, covered with cloths that seemed woven from starlight itself. And in the center of it all, a group of Sangari were gathered, clearly in the middle of some kind of ceremony. "Oh no," Marcus whispered. "I'm interrupting something important, aren't I?" Before the official could answer, a tall Sangari man approached them. He wore robes even more elaborate than the others, decorated with silver thread that traced patterns of stars and moons. This had to be Magistrate Valen. "Welcome, human courier," the magistrate said warmly. "You arrive at an auspicious moment. I'm so sorry for the interruption, sir. There must have been a scheduling error. I can leave the containers outside and come back later." No, that would be improper." Magistrate Valen smiled, showing small, pointed teeth that reminded Marcus why some people called them vampires. But the smile was kind, not threatening. "You have arrived during the hour of preparation, the ceremony before the wedding celebration. According to our customs, any visitor who crosses our threshold during this sacred hour must participate in the ritual." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Participate? Sir, I don't know anything about your customs. I'm just a delivery driver. I don't want to ruin anything important." "You will not ruin anything." A new voice spoke. And Marcus turned to see a female Sangari approaching. She was younger than the magistrate, with the same silver-white skin but eyes that held a warm, amber glow. She wore robes of deep blue decorated with tiny silver stars. "I am Lyra, sister of the bride. And you, delivery driver Marcus Chen, are about to learn the Twilight Dance." "The what now?" Marcus asked weakly. Lyra's smile was gentle and slightly amused. "Do not worry. I will teach you. It is tradition. And besides, it will be interesting to see a human dance with a Sangari. This has never happened before. At one of our weddings." Marcus looked around the room. All the Sangari were watching him now, their dark eyes curious and expectant. The hover cart, with its cargo containers, sat forgotten by the doorway. His simple delivery job had just become much more complicated. "I should probably mention," Marcus said, "I'm a terrible dancer, even by human standards." Lyra laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Then this will be an adventure for both of us. Come, Marcus Chen. The music is about to begin." The ceremonial hall filled with soft music that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Marcus couldn't see any instruments, but the sound was beautiful, like water flowing over smooth stones, mixed with distant wind through tall trees. The other Sangari moved to the edges of the room, forming a wide circle and leaving the center space open. Lyra took Marcus's hand gently. Her skin was cool to the touch, but not unpleasantly so, like holding a smooth river stone that had been resting in shade. Her fingers were longer than his, delicate but surprisingly strong. "The Twilight Dance tells a story," Lyra explained. Her voice, just loud enough for Marcus to hear over the music. "It is the story of two stars who meet across the vast darkness of space. They are different, separated by distance and time, but they find each other through the night." "That sounds beautiful," Marcus said nervously. "But I really don't know how to." "Come. Watch me first," Lyra interrupted kindly. She stepped back and began to move. Marcus watched in amazement. Lyra's movements were flowing and graceful, like she was swimming through air instead of dancing on solid ground. Her arms swept in wide arcs, her body turned and swayed, and her robes moved around her like waves of water. Every gesture seemed to have meaning, telling the wordless story she had described. When she finished the first sequence, she returned to Marcus's side. "Now, we try together. Do not worry about perfection. The dance values sincerity more than skill." "That's good," Marcus said, "because skill is definitely not something I have right now." Lyra smiled. First movement. The reaching. Imagine you are a star, alone in the darkness, sending light outward, hoping to find another. Raise your arms slowly, like this. Marcus copied her movement, lifting his arms. Where Lyra's gesture was smooth and flowing, his was stiff and awkward. He felt like a broken robot next to a professional ballet dancer. "Good," Lyra encouraged. "Now, the turning. You search the darkness in all directions." She turned in a slow circle, her movement graceful. Marcus turned too, but he wobbled slightly and nearly lost his balance. A few quiet chuckles came from the watching Sangari, but they weren't mocking, more like the warm laughter of people watching something endearing. "Sorry," Marcus muttered, his face heating with embarrassment. "Do not apologize," Lyra said firmly. "You are trying something new, something outside your culture. That takes courage." The Sangari respect courage. They continued practicing. Lyra taught him the sweeping, where dancers moved their arms to represent stellar wind. She showed him the spiraling, representing the orbits of celestial bodies. Each movement had a name and a meaning, each part of the larger story. Marcus struggled with all of it. His human body wasn't built for the flowing grace that came naturally to the Sangari. Where they had flexible joints and natural rhythm, he had stiff muscles and 2 left feet, as the human saying went. But he kept trying. And slowly, something began to change. "You are thinking too much," Lyra observed after his 10th attempt at the convergence movement. "Humans are very analytical, yes? Always thinking, planning, calculating." "Guilty as charged," Marcus admitted. "That is the problem. The Twilight Dance is not about remembering. It is about feeling." Lyra placed her hand over her heart. "Feel the music. Feel the story. Let your body respond to the emotion, not the instruction." Marcus took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He listened to the flowing music, let it wash over him without trying to analyze it. He thought about the story, 2 stars finding each other across impossible distance. 2 different beings connecting despite everything that separated them. When he opened his eyes and tried the movement again, something clicked. He still wasn't graceful like the Sangari, but his movements felt more natural, more genuine. He wasn't just copying positions anymore, he was expressing something. "Yes," Lyra exclaimed, her amber eyes brightening with excitement. "That is it. You feel it now." They danced together through the sequence again. Marcus made mistakes, stumbled occasionally, mixed up the order of movements. But each time, Lyra patiently guided him back on track. And between the practice sessions, they talked. "Tell me about human weddings," Lyra said during a rest break. "Are they very different from ours?" Marcus described Earth wedding traditions, the white dresses, the exchanging of rings, the throwing of bouquets. Lyra listened with fascination, asking questions about the meanings behind each custom. "And the dancing at human weddings?" she asked. "Is it also telling a story?" "Sometimes," Marcus said. "But mostly, people just dance for fun. To celebrate, to enjoy music, to spend time with people they care about." "That sounds lovely. Different purpose, same joy." Lyra smiled. "You know, when I first saw you, a human courier arriving during our sacred hour, I worried you might be offended or frightened by our request to dance. Many species find our customs strange." "Strange isn't bad," Marcus replied. "Just different. And honestly, this is the most interesting delivery I've ever made. Usually, I just drop packages and leave. I never get to actually experience the cultures I'm delivering to." Then perhaps this confusion of timing was fortunate after all. They returned to practicing, and Marcus noticed he was improving. He would never move like a Sangari, but he was finding his own way of expressing the dance. The watching Sangari seemed to notice too. Their expressions had changed from amused curiosity to something warmer, respect, perhaps, or appreciation for his genuine effort. Magistrate Valen approached during another rest period. "Marcus Chen, you honor our traditions with your willingness to learn. My family and I would be privileged if you would stay for the actual wedding ceremony tomorrow evening. We will, of course, pay for your time and arrange accommodation." Marcus hesitated. He had other deliveries scheduled. But something made him check his work schedule on his wrist communicator. His next delivery wasn't time-sensitive, and he had accumulated vacation days he never used. "I would be honored, Magistrate," Marcus heard himself saying. Lyra's face brightened with a smile that seemed to light up the entire room. "Wonderful. Magistrate Valen clasped Marcus's shoulder warmly. Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, you will dance with us at the wedding. This will be a celebration remembered for generations, the first time a human participated in a Sangari twilight dance. As the practice session ended and Lyra led Marcus to the guest quarters, he realized something surprising. He had arrived on Noctara, expecting to make a quick delivery and leave. Instead, he had found himself welcomed into something special, something meaningful, and the wedding hadn't even happened yet. Marcus woke in the guest quarters to the soft glow of artificial twilight filtering through translucent curtains. The bed had been surprisingly comfortable, designed to accommodate various alien body types. He stretched and checked his communicator. The wedding ceremony was scheduled to begin in 8 hours. After a simple breakfast provided by the colony's hospitality staff, Marcus wandered the corridors of Noctara. The colony was even more beautiful in the calm morning hours. Sangari residents moved about their daily routines, and many nodded politely to him. Word had apparently spread about the human who was learning their dance. Around midday, Marcus returned to the ceremonial hall to see if he could help with final preparations. What he found instead was chaos. Well, perhaps not chaos by human standards. The Sangari were too graceful and controlled for actual chaos, but there was definitely distress. A group of Sangari technicians huddled around a large mechanical system in the corner of the hall, their expressions worried. Magistrate Valen stood nearby, speaking in low, urgent tones with his family members. "Is everything all right?" Marcus asked, approaching cautiously. Lyra turned to him, her amber eyes clouded with concern. "We have a serious problem. The ceremonial hall's cooling system has failed." "Can't you just turn up the regular air conditioning?" Marcus asked. "It is not that simple," Lyra explained. "During the wedding ceremony, we will have over 200 guests in this hall. Our bodies are adapted to cool temperatures. Without the specialized cooling system, the heat from so many people gathered together will become unbearable for us. Some of our elders could even become ill." Marcus looked at the troubled technicians. "Can't they fix it?" "Our primary technician, Corvin, left yesterday to visit another colony. He will not return for 3 days." Lyra's shoulders slumped slightly. "The others are trying, but this system is very complex. Corvin built it himself using both Sangari and imported technology." "What about postponing the wedding?" Marcus suggested. Magistrate Valen shook his head sadly. "Impossible. The ceremony must occur during the alignment when our moon, our planet, and 3 specific stars form a sacred pattern in the sky. This astronomical event happens only once every 17 months. To miss it would bring great dishonor to both families." Marcus walked over to the cooling system, curious despite knowing he probably couldn't help. The machine was a strange hybrid of technology. Some parts looked familiar, resembling standard cooling units he had seen on cargo ships, while other components were completely alien in design. One of the Sangari technicians noticed him looking. "You understand machines, human?" "A little," Marcus said modestly. "I worked on merchant ships before becoming a delivery driver. Had to do basic repairs on the refrigeration units that kept certain cargoes fresh." "This looks somewhat similar?" "At least some parts of it." The technician's eyes widened. "The cooling principle is the same transfer heat from one place to another. But Corvan integrated components from 5 different technological systems. We understand our own Sangari technology, but these imported parts." He gestured helplessly at a section of unfamiliar components. Marcus knelt down and examined the system more closely. His engineering knowledge was basic, learned from practical experience rather than formal education. But sometimes, practical experience was exactly what was needed. He recognized a thermal exchange unit, a compression chamber, and what looked like a circulation pump. "May I ask what the system was doing before it failed?" Marcus asked. "It was making a grinding noise," another technician explained. "Then it began vibrating badly. We shut it down before it could damage itself further. Marcus carefully touched different parts of the machine, feeling for heat signatures. Old habits from his merchant ship days came back. When you couldn't afford expensive diagnostic tools, you learned to use your senses. One section felt warmer than it should be. "I think your circulation pump might be blocked or seized," Marcus said slowly. On the cargo ships, this happened sometimes when debris got into the coolant lines. The pump works harder, gets hot, starts grinding. "That matches what we observed," the first technician said excitedly. "But we do not know how to access the pump without damaging the surrounding Sangari components." Marcus studied the machine thoughtfully. What if we approached it differently? Instead of trying to fix it the way Corvin would, what if we use a workaround? A temporary bypass? Lyra had come to stand beside him. "Explain, please." "Well," Marcus said, warming to the idea. "If we can't easily fix the pump, maybe we can route the coolant around it, using these auxiliary lines here. It won't be as efficient as the original design, but it might work well enough to get you through the ceremony." The technicians looked at each other, then back at Marcus. "We did not think of that approach. Our training teaches us to restore systems to original function, not to improvise alternatives." "Humans improvise a lot," Marcus admitted with a slight smile. "Usually because something broke, and we couldn't afford the proper replacement parts." For the next 4 hours, Marcus worked alongside Lyra and her brother Davin, who turned out to have a natural talent for mechanical work. The Sangari technicians assisted, providing tools and explaining which components were critical and which could be temporarily bypassed. It was challenging work. Marcus had to think creatively, adapting his human understanding of thermodynamics to work with alien technology. Several times, he suggested something that wouldn't work with Sangari components, and the technicians would help him find alternative approaches. But slowly, progress happened. They rerouted coolant lines, adjusted pressure regulators, and recalibrated sensors. Lyra proved to have steady hands perfect for delicate work with small connectors. Davin's mathematical mind helped calculate the reduced efficiency they could expect from the bypass system. "If this works," Davin said as they made final connections, "it will only be because you thought of a solution none of us considered. We were so focused on fixing the pump that we never thought to work around it." "Sometimes an outside perspective helps," Marcus said. "You know your technology better than I ever could, but I know improvisation. Together, we make a good team." The moment of truth arrived. The lead technician activated the system. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a gentle hum instead of the previous grinding noise, the cooling system came to life. Cool air began flowing from the vents. The technicians checked their instruments. "Temperature dropping," one reported. "Flow rate is 60% of optimal, but that should be sufficient for the ceremony." A cheer went up from the gathered Sangari. Magistrate Valen clasped Marcus's shoulder warmly. "You have saved our wedding, Marcus Chen. How can we possibly thank you?" Marcus wiped coolant fluid from his hands, feeling exhausted but satisfied. "I'm just glad I could help. Though I have to admit, I'm going to need a shower before the ceremony." Lyra laughed. That wind chime sound he was beginning to recognize and appreciate. "Come, I will show you to the bathing facilities. You have earned rest, and tonight, you will dance not as a visitor, but as a friend of our family." As Marcus followed Lyra from the ceremonial hall, he reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. A simple delivery had turned into a cultural exchange, and now into a mechanical rescue mission. He wondered what else this unusual visit to Noctara would bring. He didn't have to wait long to find out. The wedding ceremony was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever witnessed. The ceremonial hall had been transformed into something magical. The decorations he had delivered, delicate crystal chains and flowing silk banners, now hung throughout the space, catching the soft light and creating patterns that seemed to shift and dance on their own. The repaired cooling system hummed quietly in the background, maintaining perfect temperature as guests filled every seat. Marcus sat in a place of honor near the front, wearing formal clothes that Lyra's family had provided. The garments were adapted from Sangari style, but modified for his human frame deep blue robes with silver threading that caught the light when he moved. The bride and groom stood in the center of the hall beneath an arch of living crystal that seemed to pulse with inner light. They spoke their vows in the Sangari language, words that Marcus couldn't understand but that clearly moved everyone present. The music swelled. Tears glistened in many eyes. And when the couple finally joined hands, the entire assembly rose and made a gesture Marcus had learned, meant blessing and joy. After the formal ceremony ended, the celebration began. Tables laden with Sangari delicacies were unveiled, though Marcus noticed several dishes of human-compatible food had been specially prepared for him. The guests mingled, sharing stories and laughter. Marcus found himself welcomed warmly by many Sangari who wanted to thank him personally for helping save the ceremony. He was content to watch from the sidelines, observing the cultural traditions he had been privileged to witness. The evening felt complete. He had delivered his package, learned a traditional dance, helped solve a crisis, and witnessed a beautiful wedding. What more could happen? Then Lyra appeared at his side, her amber eyes bright with emotion. "Marcus Chen," she said formally, loud enough that nearby guests turned to look. "My family wishes to honor you with a special request." Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness. "What kind of request?" "The dance of gratitude," Lyra explained. "It is a sacred tradition performed at our weddings when someone has provided essential aid to the family. The dance honors the helper and acknowledges that they have become connected to our family's story forever." Marcus's eyes widened. "That sounds important. Shouldn't it be performed by, actual Sangari? Not a clumsy human who barely learned the basic steps yesterday?" Magistrate Valen stepped forward, the bride and groom at his side. "That is precisely why it must be you. You came to us as a stranger, a simple courier, delivering a package. But through your kindness, your willingness to learn our ways, and your clever thinking that saved our celebration, you have become something more. You have become a bridge between our peoples. The dance of gratitude must be performed by two dancers," the bride added, her voice gentle and warm. "One representing the family being honored, and one representing the honored guest. Lyra will dance for our family. We hope you will dance as yourself, as Marcus Chen, the human who brought us unexpected blessings." Marcus looked around at the assembled guests. Hundreds of Sangari eyes watched him with hope and warmth. He thought about saying no, about explaining that he wasn't skilled enough for something so important. But then he remembered what Lyra had taught him, that the dance valued sincerity more than skill. "I would be deeply honored," Marcus said, bowing in the Sangari manner he had observed. The guests moved back, creating an open space in the center of the hall. The bride and groom took seats of honor. Magistrate Valen raised his hand, and the music changed slower now, more solemn, but still beautiful. Lyra took her place on one side of the open space. Marcus took his position on the other side, facing her. His heart pounded with nervousness. But he took deep breaths and centered himself. The dance of gratitude began. It started with the reaching, the movement Lyra had taught him first. Both dancers extended their arms, reaching across the distance between them. Marcus remembered the meaning stars searching for each other across the darkness. He thought about how he and Lyra had been strangers just 2 days ago, separated by species and culture and countless light years of space. Then came the answering, where the dancers moved toward each other in spiraling paths. Marcus focused on the music, on the emotion behind the movements rather than trying to remember exact positions. His steps weren't as graceful as Lyra's, but they were genuine. They moved through the sequence together, the circling, representing the orbits of celestial bodies, the weaving, showing how separate paths could intertwine, the sharing, where dancers mirrored each other's movements to show mutual understanding. With each movement, Marcus felt his nervousness fading. He wasn't performing for the audience anymore. He was dancing with Lyra, telling a story together about connection and friendship across difference. The final movement was called the convergence, the moment when two stars finally meet. Lyra had explained it to him. Both dancers moved to the center, their paths finally joining, their hands meeting in a gesture that represented unity while respecting individuality. As Marcus and Lyra performed the convergence, their hands met in the center of the hall. The music swelled to a crescendo, then gently faded. For a moment, they stood there in perfect stillness. Human and Sangari, two beings from different worlds connected in shared purpose. The silence broke with applause. But it wasn't the polite clapping Marcus was familiar with from human gatherings. The Sangari touched their hands to their hearts and then extended them outward, a gesture of deep respect and emotional connection. Marcus and Lyra bowed to each other, then to the assembled guests. As they stepped apart, Marcus realized his eyes were wet with tears. He hadn't expected to feel so moved, so connected to these people he had only just met. The bride approached and placed a small crystal pendant around Marcus's neck. "This is a family token," she explained. "It means you are always welcome in our homes, always considered a friend to our people. Thank you, Marcus Chen, for the gift of your kindness." As the celebration continued around them, Lyra led Marcus to a quieter corner of the hall, where they could talk without shouting over the music and conversation. "That was incredible," Marcus said, still feeling the emotional weight of the experience. "I've never felt anything like that while dancing. We have not a people." "That is because you truly understood the meaning," Lyra said softly. "You danced not with your body alone, but with your heart. That is the highest achievement of our tradition." They sat together, watching the other guests celebrate. Marcus felt something shifting inside him, a change in how he saw his work, his life, his place in the vast universe. He had spent 2 years delivering packages, thinking of it as just a job to pay bills, but maybe it could be more than that. Maybe every delivery was an opportunity to connect with different cultures, to learn, to build bridges between worlds. "Lyra," Marcus said slowly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Yesterday, you mentioned feeling constrained by traditional roles in your colony. Have you thought more about what you might want to do instead?" Lyra's amber eyes met his. "I have been thinking about it constantly. Watching you, a courier who brings more than packages, has shown me there are ways to serve that I had not imagined. Ways to connect our people with the wider galaxy while honoring our traditions." Marcus smiled. "I think you'd be amazing at that." As the wedding celebration continued into the night, 2 new friends sat together beneath the artificial stars of Noctara, both of them beginning to imagine new possibilities for their futures. The morning after the wedding, Marcus stood in the guest quarters packing his few belongings. His cargo ship waited on the landing pad, refueled and ready for departure. According to his schedule, he should have left Noctara yesterday, but he didn't regret staying not for a single moment. A gentle knock sounded at the door. "Come in," Marcus called. Lyra entered, carrying a covered tray. "I thought you might appreciate breakfast before your journey. I prepared some human-style food, based on the colony database." Marcus smiled as she uncovered the tray, revealing something that looked remarkably like scrambled eggs and toast, though he suspected the ingredients were probably synthesized from local proteins and grains. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to," Lyra said simply. She sat down across from him as he ate. "The family is still sleeping after the late celebration. I wanted to say goodbye properly, without crowds." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Through the window, Marcus could see Noctara's eternal twilight, the massive gas giant planet, hanging in the sky like a painting. I have been thinking all night, Lyra said finally, about what you said about finding new ways to serve. And? Marcus prompted gently. I spoke with my father this morning. I told him I want to become a cultural liaison, someone who helps bridge understanding between the Sangari and other species. Lyra's voice grew stronger, more confident. He was surprised, but not opposed. He said, if this is truly my path, he will support me. Marcus felt genuine happiness for her. That's wonderful, Lyra. You'll be perfect for it. You have patience, kindness, and you genuinely care about connecting with others. I learned from watching you, Lyra admitted. You came here as a stranger, could have simply left your delivery and departed. Instead, you opened yourself to our culture, made effort to understand us, helped us in our time of need. That is what a true cultural liaison does, builds bridges through genuine care. I just did what felt right, Marcus said modestly. Exactly. And that is the most important quality. Information about Sangari culture, our customs, our history. If you continue making deliveries to different worlds, perhaps this knowledge will help you connect with others, as you connected with us. Marcus accepted the chip carefully. Thank you. I'll treasure this. There is more, Lyra continued. I also included my contact information. The colony communication system can relay messages across the galaxy. I hope we can stay in touch, share stories of our experiences. I'd like that very much, Marcus said sincerely. He pulled out his own communicator and transferred his contact details to her. I want to hear about your journey as a cultural liaison. And who knows? Maybe our paths will cross again someday. Lyra's smile lit up her entire face. In the vastness of space, two stars found each other once. Perhaps they can find each other again. Marcus recognized the reference to the Twilight dance story and grinned. I'm counting on it. An hour later, Marcus stood on the landing pad with his hover cart, now empty of its delivered cargo. Magistrate Valen and several family members had come to see him off, despite the early hour. Safe travels, Marcus Chen, the magistrate said formally, clasping Marcus's shoulder. You arrived as a courier but leave as a friend. The doors of Noctara are always open to you. The bride and groom were there too, looking tired but radiantly happy. The bride said, Our wedding will be remembered, not just for the ceremony, but for the human friend who made it possible. Marcus shook hands and exchanged farewells with each family member. When he came to Lyra, they stood looking at each other for a moment. Both recognizing this goodbye marked the end of something special, but also the beginning of something new. Dance well on your journey, Lyra said softly, using a traditional Sangari farewell. And you on yours? Marcus replied, attempting the proper response in her language. His pronunciation was terrible, but Lyra's delighted laugh told him the effort mattered more than perfection. Marcus climbed into his cargo ship and ran through the pre-flight checklist. As the engines hummed to life, he took one last look at the elegant spires of Noctara colony, at the gathered Sangari, waving farewell, at Lyra, standing at the front of the group, with her hand raised in blessing. The ship lifted off smoothly, rising through Noctara's thin atmosphere and into open space. Marcus set course for his next delivery destination, a mining colony, 3 systems away. As the autopilot engaged and his ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Marcus settled back in his seat. He touched the crystal pendant the bride had given him, still hanging around his neck. Then he pulled out Lyra's data chip and loaded it into his ship's computer. Immediately, his screen filled with information about Sangari culture, history, customs, even language lessons. Marcus smiled and started reading. He had 17 hours of travel time before reaching the mining colony. Plenty of time to learn something new. Over the following weeks, Marcus found his perspective on work completely transformed. Each delivery became an opportunity, rather than just a task. At the mining colony, he took time to learn about the challenges the miners faced. At a scientific research station, he asked questions about their work and showed genuine interest. At a farming community on a terraformed moon, he shared stories about Earth's agricultural traditions. And every few days, messages arrived from Lyra. She told him about her training as a cultural liaison, the classes she was taking, the other species she was learning about. Marcus shared his own experiences, the people he met, the cultures he encountered. Their friendship deepened across the light years, built on shared values and mutual respect. 6 months after his visit to Noctara, Marcus received an official message from Galactic Express headquarters. They had noticed the unusually positive feedback he'd been receiving from delivery recipients. Would he be interested in a new position, cultural courier, someone who not only delivered packages but also facilitated cultural exchange and understanding between worlds? Marcus didn't hesitate. He accepted immediately. That evening, he sent a message to Lyra. "Remember when you said you wanted to find new ways to serve? Turns out I did too. Thank you for helping me see the possibilities." Her response came a few hours later. 2 stars searching in the darkness. We helped each other find our light. I'm proud of you, my friend. Marcus looked out his ship's window at the vast expanse of stars. He had started as a simple delivery driver who thought his job was just about transporting packages from point A to point B. But a wedding invitation, a broken cooling system, and a dance with an alien woman had shown him a deeper truth. Every connection mattered. Every interaction was an opportunity. Every delivery was a chance to build bridges across the stars. And somewhere out there, on a twilight moon orbiting a gas giant planet, a Sangari woman was building those same bridges, pursuing her own dreams, connected to him by friendship and shared purpose. Marcus smiled and turned his ship toward the next destination, ready for whatever unexpected connections awaited him there. After all, he had learned from the best.